Hey, howdy, hey, my Bruin brothers and sisters. I'm Jamel Zainasheff.
I'm Travis Gobble.
And I'm Mike Persine, and welcome to Brew Strong.
All right, you guys got any travel plans coming up?
Yes.
No.
So, as of tomorrow, which is part of why I'm on the road, I'm going to San Diego.
Uh,
Um, I'm a big rugby guy, if anybody knows me, and the New Zealand All Blacks are playing the Flying Fijians at
in San
the
Diego?
this in San Diego, and I will be there, and I am so stoked because I've never seen a tier one rugby match, and I've been playing for 20 years, and so and watching it my whole life, and so to be there and see the haka and all that stuff live is going to be epic. And then
Very cool.
I've made a point to really try out some cool San Diego breweries. I've got my little list. I'll report back, but definitely want to check some stuff out.
Nice. And maybe you can run into some of my quaff buddies down there.
I know. I'll just Here, you quaff? You quaff? You want to quaff? Are you quaff?
They're they're good people, and they're all over down there. Good folks.
Nice. I'll definitely check it out.
All right, you know who else is good folks?
I do.
Drew.
Okay,
The good folks at Blickman Engineering.
that's right. Led by the incomparable Drew Barnes himself. Blickman Engineering is innovating your brew day and creating new stuff. They do everything from the high end commercial size brewery systems, like their 3 barrel that'll fit through a doorway. They're constantly creating new stuff in that realm, but they also have the high end homebrew gear, and then just the really solid high quality, but fewer bells and whistles anvil system. I think Tom in the chat, he mentioned Tom Goodwin. He mentioned that I got a Blickman order at the shop today. Love the Anvil line of products. He's a fan of the Anvil as well. Yeah, just good quality gear that is going to last you a long time, and do your brewing well. Sometimes you don't need all the bells and whistles. You just need quality gear.
World-class support, I'll tell you that too.
Yeah, the Blickman
Yeah.
folks are wonderful, truly wonderful, and they've been sponsoring this show for 17 years or so, which is wonderful in itself as well. It's very kind of them. They love homebrewers and love homebrewing so much that they're willing to pay for this. So that'll tell you something. I don't know what it'll
It
tell
tells
you.
me something.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're not cheap. Well,
Right.
sure, we're cheap. Yeah.
Well, I'm cheap.
Yeah.
Uh, but and one thing you can do for me would be to just send an email to feedback@blickmanengineering.com. Give them a thumbs up, say, hey, really appreciate that you sponsor the show. So these two jackalopes gonna be on the
You can
show
keep
with me.
annoying people.
Yes. It's very kind of them, and it's very supportive of the homebrew community, and the least we can do is show them some appreciation, and like Tom, just check the stuff out at the homebrew shop, and you probably end up buying yourself some Blickman gear. You don't have to. I'm not saying you have to listen to the show, but the least you can do is check it out and send them a nice email. So there you go.
Yeah. I
Today we're
can.
doing
Oh,
we're doing a
yeah.
live Q&A show. A lot of these questions, you send them in to brewstrong at thebrewingnetwork.com, and your questions will get on the show. Even the questions that were asked a decade ago, we will get to them. Right now, we're prioritizing the ones that come in early or come in recently, so that when you ask your question, it'll get on the next show. Pretty much, you may have to wait till the show after that, but no longer than that. So if you're a regular listener, you can ask questions; they'll get on the show. The other way you can ask your questions is in the comments section. If you go to Facebook and you watch the video live while we're doing the show, you can click on the comments, enter your question as a comment, and we will do our best to get to it during the show. So you can get an answer while you're listening, and you can maybe give us some feedback on whatever answer we gave you. All right. One of the questions in the chat is from Merlinus. He was saying, what's your opinion concerning using priming sugar and kegging on CO2? What do you guys think?
My opinion is 6 to 1/2 dozen. I guess if you do I guess if you're really trying to get a high carbonation content, like if you're really trying to go spritzy and you're worried that the priming sugar won't get you there or something, or you're afraid of blowing something up.
What if Merlinus is trying to suppress the esters created by the natural fermentation by putting extra CO2 pressure on top of it?
I would say if you have the ability to keg with CO2,
just do that.
To handle that, unless,
I think maybe what he's going for is, a little priming sugar, get the yeast active to reduce any oxygen that may have been picked up in the transfer, reduces total DO, and then just finish it up with CO2, because CO2 is much easier. We all agree, and you can just dial in whatever you want. But he's getting that initial cleanup of any stray oxygen that got in when he was transferring.
Pretty solid idea. Sugar? Would you need the sugar to do that, Jamil? I mean, you definitely still have some yeast when you transfer.
Generally not. Yeast will pick up oxygen anytime. It's it's a nutrient to them. It's they don't need an excuse to pick up oxygen. A little bit of priming sugar, certainly wouldn't hurt. I'd keep it to a minimum, so you don't end up with any
off flavors.
Any sweetness.
Okay. Yeah. Just want to finish out.
Yeah.
So if Merlinus is still listening, he can type up again and tell us how far off we were in interpreting what he said.
I do like that idea though, where if you're trying to kind of scour any oxygen, that's something I didn't think of.
Right.
Get on you, mate.
Yes, I think. I think I get the points on that one.
I think you do.
Wait. You're in this competition now?
Oh, heck yeah. Hey, if there's something to be won, I'm in. All right. Brent had a interesting question for us elderly people, which is me, I guess.
Thank you, Brent, for not mentioning Mike and I.
Yes. Have you guys had life circumstances, and you guys may have as well, where the priority of brewing took the back burner? You have children, that can affect things. You both have kids, took the back burner for a while and came back to it with a different mindset. It says, I've got 2 kids, full-time teaching high school plus working part-time in athletics. And I'm starting to realize that brewing might not fit in my timeline. And my previous brewing at 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. energy is weaning. A little concerned I'll be one of those homebrewers that'll put their equipment in their garage forever until they sell it cheap. I think I'm realizing that the draw for homebrewing is the community and creativity, not really drinking it. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think there's times for everybody where, there was times when I brewed, 2 or 3 times on a Sunday, and then I snuck in a couple of other brews during the week at night. I would get a lot of brews done in a week. And, the kids became older, things like that. It really kind of changed my life on it. One of the things I'd say is, for me, it's the creativity and the community. That's really tops for me. If I just want to drink beer, I just go buy beer. Right. But one of the things I think you're going to start to lose is kind of that tie to the community and that creativity. I would suggest, maybe go to extract brewing, extract with specialty grains. It's much quicker than an all grain, thing. And you could you could kind of, keep it real short. There's even More Beer has some new kits where you don't even have to do that. It's really, just pitch the yeast, and you can, have some creativity there. So that might be something to consider. I think it's a great question. I think a lot of people end up feeling the same way. So you're not alone on that, and it'd be terrible to just see fade away. So
Yeah, I I know Brent, so I know he's a great brewer, and I know how time can get really crazy. And if you have to step back for a while and take a break, I mean, I've done that, and the itch will be there. And then there's been times too where I just, at the very least, I collaborate with some of those friends, and we come up with a recipe, and we make it at their house. And maybe I can't be there the whole time or something, and you can still express yourself, and that's what it all is all about, is that self-expression of who you are and what you want to do. And I wouldn't quit on it. I would maybe just try to find, like Jamil was saying, ways to shorten brew days, and ways to, even like I was thinking, or I've done, is collaborating and brewing at other people's houses, or
Brent
and
could
like, so the
become
whole yeah, and just don't let it get you down.
Brent could become a gypsy homebrewer.
there you
Yeah.
go. Yeah, yeah. Go to other friends and kind of hang out with them while they brew. That's a good idea. All right, so Merlin has followed up. He said, actually, that was exactly what I wanted to know. Also, whether it would help to boost the yeast to get rid of acetaldehyde faster. Um, it can. I would try and focus acetaldehyde reduction in your primary fermentation. Either, don't ferment too fast or too hot, and, you know, um, keep the yeast active all the way through the end for acetaldehyde and diacetyl reduction. All right. Let's take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to have more of your questions right after this. All right, we're back. We're doing your questions that you have asked. A lot of them we get through our email address, brewstrong at thebrewingnetwork.com. You can ask your questions. Try and hold it to one question per email. It makes it easier for us to get to all your questions, believe it or not. And if you got a show idea, you can send us an email saying show idea. We can do a show on it. Or if you got just questions. If you hate us, go ahead, and I'm sure that's Travis and Michael. But if you love me, you can send that email in too. All right. Okay. So what do we got going on today, Michael?
All right. From Adam Reynolds, he writes, "Hello, gurus. I've heard fellow brewers collecting CO2 from their fermenters and reusing this off gas to purge kegs, etc. I have not done this because I'm a little leery of picking up some volatiles in a new beer. When I close transfer to one of these empty kegs that has been filled with this off gas. Okay. What are your thoughts? Do breweries filter this gas if they intend to use it? Thanks in advance."
Yeah, it's something that is done at breweries, but mainly, they will have a machine essentially that collects the gas coming off of fermentation, runs it through a bunch of filters, membranes, scrubs it clean, and reduces those aromatics down considerably. I don't know how perfect that is.
So the pros do have a concern about these aromatics, Jamil?
Yes. I've got some friends who got in on these early machines, and they said we just sell it to, carbonation for soda, and stuff. They would come and buy it from them to haul it off.
It's what I'm buying for my beer. I'm getting
And,
beer with
right. And so
volatiles in it. I mean,
they wouldn't
CO2.
use it for their own beer. So I think the main concern is if you're doing something with like a really hoppy beer or really, a high ester beer, and you want to put it into, a clean lager, that isn't hoppy or something like that, then you might worry. The thing is that I think's okay is if you're using this to purge a keg, right? Um, and you get that keg purged with the CO2 coming off of a fermentation. When you go to fill it with beer, it's going to push out most of that gas. I don't think you're going to pick up anything, even if you had a real aromatic ferment. I think you're generally going to be fine. I can't imagine you're going to pick up much of that. And if you're purging the keg from the beer you're fermenting, you hook it up to a keg and you purge it, and then you transfer that beer into
That's what I was going to say. Yep.
I think there's zero worry there.
Yeah.
And you've saved yourself some CO2. You've got a nice purge keg. Yeah, you're good.
I was going to say that was what I've seen, and that is what I would recommend for the homebrewing scale is when you are doing this, purge the keg with the beer that's going into it.
Mm-hmm.
Bam, you're done. Now, like he said, if you're using fermentation to purge all your kegs and prep them for whenever you want to use them, maybe do that with a light American lager.
Yeah, or if it's going to be, a similar beer style, if you're brewing, I'm going to brew 10 IPAs, 10 hoppy beers. Yeah, I'm using all the same yeast. It's like, yeah, all right. I don't see a problem with that. Again, the surface area that's going to remain there is going to be really minimal. And then I'm sure you're going to either prime it or, hook up CO2 to it. And then you could just give it a little burp. So I don't think there would be any issue. I think you're pretty good to go. I think when you're, on a big scale collecting and liquefying CO2, then perhaps that could be an issue because you'd be using it in so many other beers.
Right. Well, also he has his make sure etc. doesn't include carbonating, which is one of the things that a pro would do. You'd recover your CO2 so you could carbonate with it. So if you're recovering contaminated CO2, maybe you don't want to carbonate with that.
But I would think, again, if we're talking home brewing, I mean, you have to have a mechanism to compress that and move it into somewhere where you can keep it to use it. I don't know if that's a really feasible at our scale. I mean, I guess if you're doing like Jamil was saying at the pro level where maybe they're trying to harvest this stuff and compress it and do this with a carbon capture kind of stuff. But that's what I think it just pretty straight up purge the keg you're going to use and you're good.
All right. One more from Tom. He was asking, have you guys tried any of the new all-in-one yeasts from Fermentus? They're all packed with enzymes.
I have not.
I have not as well.
I've seen them. They're curious, and they're not the only ones doing it. I think Omega is doing a lot of their liquid yeast like this now. They're tweaking them never to produce the precursor for diacetyl and so forth. I think.
That's more of a lot genetic.
They are, yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So versus just having that's a good point. Yeah.
ALDC.
Yeah. Added
no,
to
instead
it,
of using ALDC, they actually genetically
mm-hmm.
modify the yeast to produce ALDC.
Which is not what his question was. Thanks for correcting me there. His question was specifically were the fermented packs that have enzymes in the pack.
Yeah, and I think what that is it has to be dry yeast because if you were to pack a bunch of nutrients into a wet yeast, that would either kill the yeast or
it would be interesting.
Mess it. Yeah, it'd be.
Or you would do something really clever, like include a little packet of the nutrients inside the other packet, and then you pop it.
You shouldn't have said that before patenting it, Jamel. You should have patented it first.
When you want
to say that.
When you want, and then you can see the packet expand, and that would tell you that the yeast are active and all that. That would be a clever idea.
That's $1 million idea right there.
Somebody should do that. Yeah.
Why yeast double smack packs? I can see it coming.
Wait, that's what we'd call it?
Yeah, we'd call it
Well,
smack pack. Yeah.
I
double
think
smack pack.
We'd call the company Y Yeast. Yeah. Huh?
you guys are just blowing my mind with all these great ideas.
We're creators. We're creators. You know.
What can I say?
What
I'm an
can,
idea guy.
what can I say? I'm an idea guy. Yeah. There you go.
I
All right.
have a funny story about that, but
Okay. Is it short?
yeah,
Okay.
I I have been making pre-sanitized, pre-measured yeast zinc pack like bottles for
Yes.
homebrewing,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't call him Zinc Buddy, but I called him something else, and now I'm wishing I'd put a little more work into some patents or something.
Yeah, I had that idea a while ago.
The homebrew stuff, yeah.
Yeah, little
Uh,
homebrew vials of zinc. So,
yeah.
you can just put in X number of drops per thing. Yeah.
No, I had one bottle was 5 gallons, perfectly 200 parts per billion. Just send
Yeah.
it. You don't have to sanitize it. You don't have to measure it. You just
There you
pour it
go.
out.
Yeah.
And there's some great ideas out
Yes. Have you,
there.
are you having success with it?
Yeah, no, I can, Reno locally, but um,
There you go.
my international sales haven't taken off yet. No.
Yes. Yeah, I talked to my buddies at More Beer about doing it. And then
Yeah. The
I'm
whole
like,
problem is
well,
it takes a long time because I'm very meticulous and I want it to be perfect. So,
well, yeah, you have to make sure it's 100% sterile, and you have to,
mhm,
if more beer got involved, you have to be able to do it on a very large scale.
just turn,
Yeah,
yeah.
you don't need any questions of hey, what happened to my beer here? I used your zinc stuff and now you're dried out. It went negative, went below one. You don't need that.
There you
Yeah.
go.
I mean, so far as I've gotten my feedback has all been good. So,
There you
but
Excellent.
yeah, that's my little short 10-second shoulda, woulda,
go.
coulda.
10 second, yes. All right. Okay. Next question.
All right. I am ready. I'm looking at opening a boutique brewery in my garage in Barbados. So that
Nice.
that sentence alone is like
I think
loaded.
I think I need a trip to Barbados.
I know. I want to
Yes.
go to boutiques and garages. Let's go.
We need to
What do
do
you
a
think
show
about
from
what do you
Barbados.
think? Yes, live from Barbados.
There
The
you
waves crashing. All right. What do you think about the Blickman 2 vessel, 2 barrel brew house? Is it better to go with a Herms 3 vessel system, or could I get away with using my 65-liter all-in-one homebrew system to do step mashes at this volume, which I thought was 2 barrels, remember? So using homebrew system with coil in boiling water to raise temp. He says, ghetto, but I'm thinking it should work. Thanks for your guys' knowledge, input all these years, Dwayne Hines.
Is he talking about combining the 65 liter with the two
So
barrel as a
I read
Herms?
I read this 4 times, and I'm thinking he's using the 65-liter Bruzilla as like a hot liquor tank for a
go.
Herms.
Right.
Instead of having a 3 vessel where you have a dedicated Herms hot liquor tank that's the same size as your brew house.
Well,
So,
all right. So, um, the only, 65 liter is about 17 gallons. It's about half a barrel. Um,
yeah.
it might just work because, I mean, you can always go to a hotter temperature. The thing about going to too hot a temperature is that, as the wort passes in, and the enzymes may denature as the heat comes back out, or it may take longer to, um, you know get your step mashes going. Or if he's trying to step mash, might be an issue. The steps could be really slow if you're trying to raise from, say, a protein rest up to a saccharification rest. that's a pretty big jump, and it could be kind of slow.
Do we know if the Brazilla has adjustable strength, like can dial in the power?
Well, it
No.
depends. He
It's fixed
right,
on
but he may
okay.
be on 220. And if you're on 220, those things can put out some good heat pretty
Yeah.
quick.
No, I was concerned with maybe too much heat.
And they
If there's
have,
one he could dial down.
I think they have high and low. There's multiple burners.
Okay.
Um, right. So that may
The
be an issue. But if he's just trying to maintain a good temperature and recirculation of the wort, um, for clarity and all that, then I think it would work. And especially in Barbados, I imagine it's not that cold most of the time in Barbados. So I've actually been to Barbados once. Um, so I would think that it would probably work. I don't think I think he could get away with it.
And
Um,
you suppose if we use it as rims, that would be too hot and that would denature everything in the wort and he wouldn't get as good
well, he wants to do herms, so he
right.
right.
wants to recirculate the wort
Through
through a
a coil
coil in that
pot of hot water.
single,
Right.
like that Bruce. I don't know that it's a Bruzilla. It could be any one of the brands, but
Right.
it's
That's why I
that
was thinking if it was something
all-in-one.
he could control the heat, he could dial the heat down, use it as a rims instead, not denature, etc. Have a larger volume warmed up
Oh,
and circulated back.
I
uh,
think rims. I think electric heating, and
Well,
you're
right,
this is
running the
electric
wort
heating.
over a coil. But no, I'm saying
right.
like so he's heating
If you
that
wanted to
that
do
little.
rims, it's not that expensive to buy a chamber and a heating element and
Hmm.
wire it all up. But I like Herms better than rims personally. Um, Easier to keep clean, less potential for scorching. It's a real gentle way of heating up your wort. Yeah, I think the only issue would be if he's trying to, um, you know, uh, do like some step mashing of a high temperature. But if you're doing that, you're probably trying to do log or something like. Go ahead with decoction. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My
And decocting the Brazil or whatever it is.
my 10-second chemical engineer's perspective on heat exchangers is you're going to have to be able to transfer that heat into that wort of that 2-barrel system, which is 62 gallons.
Hmm?
So you're taking 17 gallons worth of water and transferring the heat out of that into something that's 62 gallons of water.
Wait. He's not
And
taking 17 gallons of water because he's got just the coil inside of it.
no, so the way I read this question was he's taking his 65-liter single vessel homebrew setup and using that as a Herms tank. So
Mhm.
he's running his wort through a coil in that
Right.
tank.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So he's using the water, that 65 liters of hot water, to heat 62 gallons of wort or mash, if you will. And
Essentially,
so
four times the volume.
Yeah.
yes. And so I think the nuts and bolts are going to come down to, is it 220? How many watts are we talking?
Yeah,
How
whether it whether it
there's kind
can
of particulars that
whether it
are going
can
to be,
maintain enough
yeah.
heat in the
And that's
tank.
going to be where,
But if you're, you know, again, I was talking about using a hotter temperature, and if he's trying to do steps or he's just trying to maintain.
right,
So, a lot of I had a Herm system, and what I was really just trying to do was deal with heat loss and keep a nice
right.
stable mash temperature. So if I want to
Yeah.
be at 152, it kept at 152 all the time, and I could, not worry about it. So
He
I
does specify
think that.
step mashes, Jamil.
Oh, he does.
Yes, he's trying to
Yeah.
step it.
And but even
Well,
then, it's like, are we talking about ferulic acid rests and protein rests up into beta and alpha? Or are we talking beta and alpha? Like
right.
there's all kinds of, and that's where
Yeah.
maybe have the dough, maybe have the cash on hand to buy that third vessel to
Right.
have for a Herms, and try to build this. And if it just doesn't
Right.
pencil out, or it can't, what you'll see is a huge temperature drop in your Herms tank, and you'll get down to where it's the same temperature as the mash and nothing's happening, and now the heating is basically stopped, and so you're basically just recirculating wort around and around and around. So
Well, and
I'd say build it and they will come.
see what happens. And you can always do just infusion mashing to start, and get your business going, build up some money, and then buy your third vessel, uh,
And
like
we
that.
can give
How
our
many
little
lagers is he
disclaimer.
making for Barbados?
Dude.
Yeah, how long a flight is it from Houston?
Oh, it's long.
Yeah, not even.
Sure.
You could be there a couple hours.
All right. So,
Now,
Mike,
I
how
was
long do
gonna.
we have to talk about this before you actually do the calculation for the heat exchange to figure out what kind of wattage you need to get this to go 5 degrees at a time?
All right, I got you.
All
I'm
right,
gonna do this.
let's do
Get a
this.
minimum volume.
Let's take another short break, and when we come back, we'll have more of your questions right after this. All right, we're back. Listen to Brew Strong, and we are answering your questions that you've sent in to the email address, brewstrong@thebrewingnetwork.com, or you've asked live in the chat here. What do we got next, Mike?
All right. Sorry. So this has to do with mead and the use of RO and concerns with human health, actually. So, hi guys. I was listening to the session and mead making was the topic. I've been getting into mead making. He's on his second batch. The owner of Melovino said that he uses reverse osmosis water. I had remembered reading an article about health effects of humans drinking mineral depleted water. The consensus is that not that it is not all that good for you. Here's a link and the address of the article. It gives this big address to the WHO. Love the show, Zach. I have something to say as the water engineer. But
Go ahead.
all right, so reverse osmosis water is mineral deficient if you drank that straight. You're not. You're mixing it with a lot of honey and yeast and hopefully nutrients and hopefully some brewing salts or minerals to get that mouthfeel where you want it. And so with that, you are eliminating the dangerous effects of mineral deficient water, which actually causes dehydration. So, you drink the water, it sucks the minerals out of your body almost. It's the opposite of drinking Gatorade kind of thing. So that's where I'm at with it. It's pretty cut dry. You're fine. The only thing is if you use RO with no other minerals or anything and you just throw honey in there and yeast, you're gonna have a bad day.
Yeah, the fermentation won't go well.
Yeah, yeah.
So the yeast require those minerals. So you want to have a certain amount of minerals. You can use RO, but I blend it back with some of the non-RO processed water, or I would add some mineral salts to get an appropriate balance in there, and it'll taste better with some mineral salts. It's the mineral salts are like seasoning on food, and your meat will taste better with a little bit of a little bit of seasoning. All right,
Yes. Yes. But in terms of health and being dangerous to drink,
that'll be fine.
it'll be fine. As soon as you add that honey and yeast, you have provided enough mineral total dissolved solids that you're not going to have a dangerous liquid to ingest.
And you'd have to drink a lot of RO to really hurt you.
That's the other thing. Yeah, you'd have to be going hard.
Yeah.
So
the
Mike,
the alcohol is the thing that's dangerous.
That's the other.
come on, don't ruin it for me. Mike, RO versus RODI. Is RODI significantly worse for you?
Well, so one is passed through a membrane and deionized waters pass through an electromagnetic field, as far as I understand. I think the DI water actually is more pure. So
Right.
Yes.
it could
Yeah.
be, yeah.
The
The
homebrew systems do RO then DI. If you homebrew the
Well, if you do
systems you can
both, yeah,
buy.
you're
Yeah.
doubling up. Yeah, you're
oh,
getting both.
So
the
it
it depends on how aggressive the RO is. So most RO systems, it leaves a certain amount of minerals behind, and there are systems you can actually select how much you're rejecting and how much you're letting through.
Yeah.
I didn't spend that kind of money.
But the home systems, they'll leave a bit in there. But yeah, one
But
of the things I
yeah,
did at Heretic was run an RO system, and then when we needed deionized water, we would run it through the deionizing columns. And the reason I did RO first was to preserve my DI columns as long as
Yeah,
possible,
and
because
those were resin, right? Those are resin
it's
columns.
resin
that's
with,
what I have.
Yeah.
and
Sorry, there's
got,
two technologies. Sorry,
they've got
but yeah,
different charges to the resins. There's a
yeah,
couple of resins with different charges, and so it
they
pulls
call
out
it
the flat.
ion exchange.
Yes,
Yes,
My
yes,
$10 meter says I'm getting it down to 2 ppm.
yeah,
yes.
you're pretty much done.
It's
Yeah,
Which I don't
probably
know
as good
what
as your
Houston water is
ten
starting
dollar
out,
meter
but
200 something.
dude, here in Reno we're at like 60.
Wow,
The tap water's 60.
you can brew with that.
Oh yeah, Tahoe baby.
All right.
Sorry, but anyways, you're not in danger.
There you go. All right, we got one from Jesus in the chat. I have a thermocoil to keep my fermenter at a stable temp. Currently, my glycol chiller will run when the temperature gets too high, as expected. The glycol chiller is 37 degrees. Will run until the temperature drops to the target. My question is, does that 37-degree shock the yeast? Does it make a difference? Recently heard a podcast where a European brewery slowly chilled to avoid yeast shock. Any opinion? Well, it shouldn't be an issue. So at Heretic, our glycol, we ran it at 29 degrees. By the time it went through all the piping and reached a tank, it was generally around 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Um, so um, it really, and if you had a fermenter that was like really flat and there was a huge amount of coil surface area, maybe that could be a problem. Like you're running through a plate chiller or something. That could be an
You're
issue.
answering my question. Yeah,
But
surface area.
your the surface area to liquid ratio is it's going to prevent that from happening. So you'll there's a tiny bit of liquid that's getting chilled, but by the time it gets chilled, the liquid next to it is being chilled. You've got conduction going on, which is one of the most efficient transfers of the the cooling energy. So shouldn't be an issue. And if the beer is fermenting, that stirs up the liquid as well, and you will get good mixing from that. So it shouldn't be an issue at all. You should be real good on that. So, but excellent question, Jesus. Thanks for
Yeah,
asking.
the main for me, the big thing that you have to remember is water has an incredible ability to conduct and absorb heat. And so that coil running through your fermenter at 30 degrees, maybe at the interface you're at 30 degrees, but in the bulk, you're not getting to a temperature that would hurt the yeast. And because of the heat capacity of water and the amount of water we're talking about compared to the amount of coolant, you are completely safe. And it has been tested and proven in thousands and thousands and thousands of breweries, like Jamil just said, where they're at 28 in their glycol chiller. They're below freezing, but because these giant tanks and they're jacketed, so there's a lot more interface with the cooling water than probably at your homebrew setup. I could run the calcs for you, but if you take my word for it, water is an amazing ability to absorb heat without temperature change and or release heat without temperature change in this case. So do not fear, sir. Your yeast are very safe.
Yeah. Also, I want to note that I mean the way Jesus has worded it, it might be the way he heard it. He slowly chills. That doesn't mean that his glycol wasn't cold. It just means he just did it in steps, perhaps. And honestly, the only issue I've seen with glycol temperature in a homebrew scale is you're going to get temperature swings if it's too cold. you're going to bring it down too far, and you might stall your fermentation. I haven't heard anything about, as you point out, Mike, issues with the yeast being shocked and causing off
Oh,
flavors in the beers.
yeah, Travis, you're bringing up a good point. If your temperature probe that's controlling the flow of glycol through the coil is not optimally situated, if you're
I was
not,
just about to talk about this. Yeah.
yeah, if you're not getting in there good and measuring, you know, generally if the beer's fermenting, it is possible that you're fermenting and you not really stirring up the all the liquid in there. And if you're measuring just one remote corner that's kind of stayed warm, then you could over chill perhaps internally, and then cause a problem. But that's pretty rare. If you notice something, if you notice a problem, then go ahead and maybe make some adjustments. But I'd just make sure your probe is somewhere representative of the bulk of the liquid, and you should be fine.
Just make sure you're properly probing.
Go. All right. On that note, what's the next question?
All right. Starters for dry yeast. Hello, Brew Strong team. I have been
For
brewing
that,
for
we're a
fifth.
team now.
Yeah, I know. We're
Some
not
of us
just
got the jerseys and wore them.
see, I have a jersey. I didn't get the memo, all right.
The memo was the invite to the show. But anyway.
See, whatever. You got to put it in the memo then. I'm sorry, guys. I have been homebrewing for 15 years, and I have been a longtime listener of the Brewing Network. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for all that you're. Thank you so. Thank you so much for all the information and straight up wisdom about making better beer. I recently listened to the Lalaman show with Avi about dry yeast. This was a real eye opener for me since I have mostly used liquid yeast to make starters for every brew. I now live in a more rural area, and my local homebrew shop mostly carries dry yeast, so I have started using it with mostly good results and making starters with it. I mentioned making a starter for my next beer, a Belgian triple, to my local homebrew store. And he said I should not do that with dry yeast and that it would actually be detrimental to yeast health. I am concerned with building cell counts since it's
Not,
cheap.
I'm not concerned. Sorry.
I am not concerned with building cell counts since it's cheap enough to
You
buy
told
more
me you
dry
could
yeast.
read before you got this job.
I'm sorry, I'm just,
Jamil gets a point.
dude, you get what you pay for. Oh, but I do not want, but I do want the yeast to be healthy and ready for action when possible, as possible in the yeast of making great beer. My local homebrew store owner makes great beer, so I respect his opinion. I sent Lalaman an email question on this, and they said that I did not need to make a starter because the way it is made, the yeast are healthy and viable as can be when pitched into the wort. But he never said in the email that it would be detrimental to the yeast to make a starter. I have done some beers with dry yeast starter, noticed that it takes longer for the fermentation to start when using starter. And though I compensate by using more yeast when not using a starter, I've been listening to some of the more recent shows, and I'm sorry if this was already covered and I missed the beer drinking and may have been involved. Again, thank you, Jamil, and all your crew for bringing this huge wealth of knowledge. I really enjoy your book, BCS. Blah. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Much respect, Bob C. in Blairsville, Georgia.
All
Hey,
right.
Bob.
So even the show with Avi, he was saying that I asked him straight out, can you get more viable yeast by making a starter, by rehydrating, all these things? And he was like, yes. Now, is it necessary for a lot of beers, for a lot of homebrewers that struggle with rehydration or making starters? Then don't worry about it. If you're gonna screw up the yeast because you don't know how to make a starter well, or you don't know how to rehydrate yeast properly, well then yeah, just skip it. sprinkle it on the surface. Don't worry about it. Or if you're going to contaminate it, or if it's so much trouble for you that you're not going to brew, yeah, just sprinkle it on. You'll be fine. But it sounds like Bob's been brewing for 15 years and making starters for 15 years. He probably knows a thing or two about making a proper starter. So I think, Bob, keep going with the starters. You notice that you're getting better results with the starters. If it's not a problem for you, then keep doing it. You're not hurting the yeast if you do it correctly. You are not hurting the yeast. That's just a fact. You'll
and in that
more.
And in that show,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
In that show, I remember very explicitly Avi talking about if you do make a starter, the stirring needs to be very gentle. You kind of initially need to very gently
The
rehydrate
rehydration.
these things. Yeah, and so if you're kind of following those steps, and then what I can say is if you're trying to achieve a certain pitch rate and maybe you don't want to purchase extra packs, or you have some other, like you said, want to wake them up, get them going. You like to pitch at high Croissant for starters. That's something people really, really are committed to, which works great. In terms of Belgian triple, I don't understand the mechanism where that would hurt the yeast. They've been conditioned to be ready to go as soon as they wake up from their dried state, and as long as you're using proper oxygenation and nutrient health and pitch rates, you should end up with a fantastic triple, assuming you're using the proper Trappist ale strains. So
Jamil, he has a line in here. If you don't mind, having done some beers with dry yeast without a starter, it takes longer for fermentation to start with the dry yeast. Now, I equate that to a yeast count and yeast growth situation, and possibly not something of concern as long as your end result is where you're trying to go. I mean, how long does it take the yeast to hydrate? How much impact is that going to have on the duration before fermentation starts? I guess before you start seeing airlock activity.
I mean, it shouldn't. The amount of time for it to rehydrate and get fermenting is, you put it in a starter and all that goes pretty quick. So it should be pretty quick in the fermenter. The advantage I see to always at least rehydrating and always and also making a starter is that you're really, like we talked about in the previous show about stuck fermentations, you're proofing your yeast. You're making sure that this yeast is viable. You're making sure that it's going to be a good ferment, because, even packs of dry yeast, as durable as they are, they can be ruined by sitting too hot for too long. They can be ruined by a lot of different things. So they could get frozen solid and kill a bunch of the yeast. You don't know what happened to that between the manufacturer and in your hand. So that's why I like doing that. I got burned way too much by liquid yeast and dry yeast not being good. And so I always, making a starter is just insurance on that $50 I've put into, that. Yep. How much is it today to brew a homebrew batch?
10 gallons can be $100, 125, depending on how many hops or special smells.
So in order to, just ensure I'm going to get great results, I like, doing starters and making sure. So I think the net takeaway, Bob, is if you're having, good results making starters, I wouldn't shy away from that. The dry yeast companies they're not lying that you can go ahead and sprinkle them on nowadays, but if it's a high gravity beer, especially like a triple or something like that, I think Avi was saying, yeah, in that case, you probably want to rehydrate and all that, because the higher the osmotic pressure, the worse it is for the yeast to rehydrate. They've done amazing jobs in improving that over the years, but there's still a limit to it, and you're gonna get better results with rehydrating and probably making a starter.
Yep.
All righty. Okay. Let's squeeze in another one.
All right. Next one. Water astringency. So, since I switched to all grain brewing 5 months ago, I've been brewing 5 batches, two of the same recipe, all consistently exhibit harshness that I haven't been able to diagnose. I wasn't having this issue prior to going all grain. The biggest process change that I introduced at the point of switching. Wait, go back. The big process change I introduced at that point was switching from using distilled water to brewing with City of Austin water with a pH of 9.6. Water report attached. The beer isn't terrible, it's just off in a way that's too consistent to be a coincidence. So the question is, I know high mash pH can cause problems with astringency. I'm having problems identifying whether what I'm tasting is actually astringency. Would a high mash pH yield described as harsh or thick? I'm having trouble identifying this with the sucking on a tea bag description that is in all the literature. Insert tea bag joke here.
Come
Nobody?
on, Mike, you
Okay.
got it. Do it.
No, like at least it's not your own tea bag. Oh, and so I'm not sure if I found the culprit. Um, he goes on about looking for things about harsh, thick, lingers on your tongue, intense flavor. His efficiency has been high in high 70s, low 80s.
Does
Process
he say the
and his
beer types
process.
he's brewing?
He doesn't go into this. Maybe down here. My basic process is mashing at 1.5 quarts per pound. I've done both batch and fly sparging. I use a 10-gallon igloo cooler. Typically, do a single infusion for about an hour. I've been acidifying my sparge with lactic. Use Brewer Friends for all the acid salt calcs.
Is he
I
measuring
typically prefer
pH?
maltier styles, so I often put 1 to 3 grams of calcium chloride to round out the flavor. There's a
Any
little left on the.
filtration? Any pH measurements?
No,
Yeah,
that's the end of it.
he bought a better Milwaukee pH meter for more beer. Let's see. He had good results with the Doppelbock from BCS. And in a follow up, I neglected to send. He said that over time the taste is consistent, so he doesn't believe it's contamination of any kind, like bacterial or something like that. Yeah, I think he's on it. That it's that
City water.
city water.
Shitty water.
Yeah, and at a pH of 9, and it's probably got a lot of minerals. I mean, Travis, you're saying in Houston the water
Yeah.
is pretty bad.
Yeah. So when I first moved here, my Lamont test kit here versus New Orleans or Metairie looked very similar results. What I've come to realize, and it might have changed it back in Metairie also, is it's the use of what is it, chloramines. They were making my IPAs horrible. You told me several times, Jamil. It was a very harsh, lingering bitterness. I wouldn't say it was thick, uh, but yeah, it was. I was surprised because the water on paper, again with a Lamont kit, Lamont doesn't tell you if you have chlorine or chloramine in your water. Obviously, you test pH with whatever you want, and my pH was pushing 10 back in Metairie, but my IPAs got much more harsh when I moved here, and similar pH. Actually, my pH is a little lower here, probably because the chloramine sticks around and they can trust it.
Yeah, sounds like a water issue to me. How about you, Mike?
Yeah, the 9.6 sticks out. The more I just thought of that, or what Travis said, just made me start to think about chloramines and what those can do to a beer. They're very, very bad. I don't know about Texas and the city of Austin and what they're doing, but maybe worth a call to the water company, or just buying the necessary carbon filters to treat for chloramines. I did look at that water report, and the big one I noticed is very hard, very a lot of alkalinity. Um, Acid additions are going to be um, resisted by that kind of water, so you're going to have to really pH monitor that, especially in the mash. That's because if you get over 6 pH in the mash, you're going to start extracting tannins from the husks, and you're going to end up with a very astringent, unpleasant flavor. So
He's going to be teabagging.
yeah, he's gonna be teabagging.
And Merlin has suggested, using Camden tablets to deal with the chloramines if you don't have
That is a good point. Yes.
Yeah, I did that too. That was all part of my process of getting to RODI that I use now. Um, Acidifying, that was the first thing Jamil recommended. And using that Milwaukee that hopefully he still has 9 years later, um, to make sure you acidify to a proper level and your mash, it's a good, I found that my mash pH was not horribly off with the city water, because it seems the malt will do what it needs to do to get somewhere where it can do its work. Oh, don't measure for 15 minutes. Well, that 15 minutes might be your important 15 minutes to see how much your malt's working to make up for the water versus getting it right to start off with. So acidify to a 5.0 pH would be nice. Jamil used to have a great, almost like a titration type technique. If you explain it, Mike will tell me that I called it the wrong name, and that would be outstanding because I've learned something here too about that. Keep adding the acid until you start to see the pH start to break. But at 9.6,
Oh,
you
that's a
need to get it
titration.
really low.
Mm-hmm.
That's a titration. No, and literally, I think honestly, after hearing Travis talk about this, and it sounds like he has a pH meter, so he's doing his stuff. My best, my vote is that it is a chloramine. Chloramines are very stable. They don't drive off with cooking or splashing or any of these things that regular bleach will be able to be driven off. Chloramines are very resistant to that. They can make it through to your finished beer. So if
That's
that
why
is
they
what
use
the
them.
city of Austin is doing, and anybody who's using city water should call around and figure out, or just account for it. I mean, I'm lucky enough that I work in the industry, and I know for a fact I actually toured our drinking water plant, and they do not use chloramines at all. They specifically do not. So I can say, like, I can build my process around that assumption, versus wherever you are in the country, you need to be checking and making sure that's not a thing, because that will hurt the flavor pretty bad.
All right, let's take one last break, and we'll come back in a moment to wrap up with some final questions right after this. All right, we're back. We're doing live Q&A. We're talking all sorts of interesting topics. We got some great questions coming in the chat. Andrew asked, hi from Singapore. Is there any chance of SMM converting to DMS forming in the whirlpool, considering a temp of 77 degrees C, which is 171 degrees Fahrenheit, and a whirlpool duration of 20 minutes and a runoff time of 20 minutes for 1,000 liters? There is a point where the SMM, forget what temperature it is. I thought it was around 175. So you may be okay. I think it was 80 C, maybe something like that. It's been a while since I've looked at those numbers, but there is a temperature where you're safe from that. Merlinus was saying, hey, you need to drop your temperature down as fast as possible. I'm wondering if Andrew is looking at the whirlpool of 77 degrees centigrade, 170 Fahrenheit, if he's doing a whirlpool hop stand where
Did
he's
you?
he's dropped the temperature down to 170 to put his
Mhm.
whirlpool hops in, and then that's why it's taken 20 minutes, because he's doing a stand at 20 minutes, and then he says yes.
Mhm.
So and he's concerned about forming a DMS after that. So I don't think you have a problem with that, Andrew. I think you're going to be fine. The you know More concerned if you're doing something like you maybe, if you're getting DMS in the beers and that's why you're wondering about this, um, it may be dry hop creep, assuming you're doing a bunch of dry hopping later. That could be an issue, but I don't think you'll have a DMS issue, or well, that would be diacetyl. I don't think you'll have a DMS issue with this. Um,
Yeah, so he's what's an 8.5 barrel system. He's not homebrewing necessarily,
right.
and if I've only done a couple pro-ams, Jamil. It takes a whole lot longer to cool off a larger quantity of wort or yeah wort at that time than it
Yeah,
takes me at home.
yeah, it'll sit hot, and the whole thing sits hot and goes through a plate heat exchanger. And
Hmm.
so it's sitting at that temperature. The only way you get down to like 170, like Andrew's probably doing, is he goes through his heat exchanger and then
Hmm.
back into the whirlpool to chill it down, to knock it down to that temperature, or he does it in the kettle and then transfers to his whirlpool.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Maybe I'm out of my element, but I've always really focused on DMS through boil vigor and time.
right,
And if I'm using Pilsner malts, we're doing 90-minute boils. We're getting a good rolling boil. We're driving off these precursors.
right,
And so when I'm done with that, and maybe I could be wrong. I'm not super, haven't done all the lab work, but I always make the assumption that at that point I can manipulate the wort how I'd like and not worry about a
right.
vegetal cabbage
Yes,
of sulfur.
generally that's the case. And a lot of it depends on the source malt that you're using, so, and how that was handled, how it was grown, the amount of SMM that is present, the precursors in the malt.
Right.
Different malts, different amounts of precursors. So generally, he's using crisp. Um,
Which should be fine.
yeah,
Yeah.
have you noticed anything? This is almost like a conversation here, Andrew. Have you noticed
Right.
any problems, or you're just making extra sure that something like that never
Yeah.
happens?
Well, I'm sure there is a chance. Yeah.
All right. So you're saying there's a chance.
Well, I think
Highly unlikely.
he's preemptive. He's just being
Mm.
trying
Yeah.
to make the best beer possible, and just
Yeah.
Absolutely.
making sure.
Boil
Yeah,
with
I don't,
vigor.
I don't think it'd be an issue. Plus, good active fermentation will blow off. If you get a little bit in there, it'll blow off, most stuff. So I
Yeah.
think it'd be good. Although what I think needs to happen is I need to go to Singapore and taste the beer just to make sure
Yeah. I
that
think we need
that's
a brew strong bake. We need a brew strong field trip.
we need we need, we need
Brew
to do
strong
a
tour.
remote show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll call it, instead of Antiques Roadshow, it'll be Brew Strong.
One antique and
Brew
two
Strong
two
Beer
other
Show.
goods. Yes.
I don't know.
You've been to his brewery.
I have. Uh, but I need to follow up. That was a while ago. Come on, work with me here. I'm trying to weasel my way into a trip to Singapore.
Absolutely.
Nice. Very cool. All right. Are we doing one more question from the email?
Yes.
All right. Let's go.
We'll do one more.
All right. We got one short one here. This is from 2014. So, like you were saying, it's never too late. We will get to you. It's in the queue. Hi, Jamil recently stated that he does not use step mashing for any beers that he makes. Does this include Belgian styles? Many of my recipes I see for Belgian beers call for a multiple step mash. Thank you. From Paul.
Yeah, Paul. I generally do not do step mashes at all because they're really not needed for the vast majority of ingredients that we get today. So I don't see the need for it. I think people screw up their beers more than they help sometimes with step mashing. Now, not to say I don't 100%. Like sometimes I'm just having fun. Like a buddy of mine, he had never done a decoction. And so I said, "All right, we'll do a decoction mash." So we did a alt beer, and a lot of the alt beer
Salbia.
producers they do decoctions, and so I'm you know I was like, that's fine, I'll teach you to do a decoction. So we did a double decoction, so that's step mashing. And then
Hmm.
I've done it in the past, for loggers and bells and for all sorts of stuff, just to see what the difference would be, and just generally found that it wasn't worth the effort. The juice was not worth the squeeze, as they say, as all you kids say these days.
Those
So
youngins.
or as you kids used to say a long
Those
time ago.
whippersnappers.
I don't know what the actual kids are saying today because I'm
Neither
old.
do
It's kind of sus.
I'm old. So
Sus. There you go.
I
okay.
don't even think they're saying that anymore. They're doing something else. I will say I've had so many conflicting. I mean, I have professionals that I've talked to that are adamant that decoction matters in like wheat beers and
Oh yeah.
Belgians, and
Right.
they will talk your off about how this beer is not the same if they do an infusion. And I'm with Jamil. I have not noticed any extra juice. Um, I've been making this Vice beer that I make for many years, and I tried the step mash the last time, and new beer same as the old beer. I didn't really get a whole lot of difference. I mean, but again, if that's your contention, and I don't think there's any one authority or any there's no, I mean, actually there is. They've pretty much figured out that infusion mash with well modified malts produce just as good a beer as a step mash beer. It does come down to those malts though, that they have to be well modified and ready to be um, put into a saccharification rest. And without that, yeah, if you find some sort of boutique malts that have low modification, you might need to do protein rests and things like that, but or beta glucan rests, whatever. But in
Well,
terms of the modern malts you buy at the homebrew store, I do not believe this is a necessary step.
and if you enjoy it, if it
Yeah,
makes your brew day, better, absolutely go ahead and do it. There's homebrewing is all about having some fun and being creative and doing what you like. And if it makes a better beer for you, or you enjoy the process and you want to extend your brew day, absolutely go for it. No problems with that.
yeah,
Enjoy. That's what we're here
yeah.
for. And do things the way you like them to be done. All right. That's all we have time for today. Like I said, if you have your questions, you want to have them answered on the show, just send them in to brewstrong at thebrewingnetwork.com. And we're actually getting to them pretty quick now for the more recent questions. And then we're mixing in some really old ones as we try and clear the backlog. I vowed to answer every question that was sent in, and that's what we're going to do if it's the last thing I do. So please keep sending your questions in. And if you have a chance to send another email, send it to feedback@blickmanengineering.com. Tell Drew that he's doing a marvelous job. And we really appreciate that he is supporting this show, and he pays for it, so you don't have to. And I think that's pretty sweet. He's a good dude, and he is a creative dude and a smart dude. And why somebody that creative and smart is sponsoring this, I don't know. But, he's got a soft spot
We all make
for us
mistakes.
and homebrewers. Yeah.
How long have they been sponsoring, Jamil?
17 years.
So Drew's probably been playing the long game here because it's been Blickman the whole time, and now it's Drew,
Yes.
and his long game has paid off.
There you go.
Yeah, he's stuck with us. Ha!
He's stuck with us now. All right.
No, he's not. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll be back I don't know, a few weeks, month. I don't know. It depends on how much traveling I'm doing. Ryan says, Travis, I owe you a couple of New Zealand Pilsners. Wim says, thanks, Drew. All right, everybody, we'll be back in a few weeks. So until then, brew strong, everybody.
Brew strong.
Brew strong, everybody.